It's just going to be my first split in LCS, like playing full time. I just want to show people that I'm really good.
It's awesome to finally be back in the LCS. I just miss like playing on stage.
This is basically like the next chance for me to prove myself as a player.
We win because I'm a god and I will carry.
Some teams will become, better at best of 3, or some teams will like crumble.
I think C9 will be really strong this year with Impact and Bunny.
I think with this new roster, it's a lot better. This split is actually like the best split we're going to have.
Impact's like a really good top laner, but I think Kuni's even better, so we can easily win.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 2016 North American LCS Summer Split. Now, last night we kicked off the split with a bang, and today we debut our new dual stream format, show off our new battle theater, and introduce you to the rest of our teams. Our players are getting set up on stage currently, as you can see right now. Of course, we're going to have Cloud9 versus Immortals in our first series of the day. Meteos going to be back in the jungle for Cloud9 today. Our first NA LCS MVP there, making his return to the stage. Huni, of course, fan favorite there for Immortals, looking to come back strong after a disappointing finish to their split in the spring. And of course, newcomer Zig here for Phoenix One playing in the top lane. We've seen him in Collegiate as well as Challenger, so he'll be looking to make his stamp on the LCS, and Froggen leading the charge for Echo Fox. That LCS CS record in a single game to his name. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm James Dash Patterson, and joining me today on the Analyst Desk, our special guests, Marcus, Dyrus Hill, and Mark Zimmerman. Gentlemen, welcome, first off, to the new studio. And how are we doing today?
I gotta say, I'm not that happy, man.
What? Why not?
They took my chair. I have to stand up now. There's two things I do well. I sit, I talk about League, and you just cut out half my skill set.
All right, well, then you're just going to have to compensate then with you talking about League. You have to step up the analysis today. Dyrus, how are we doing?
This will have to be my exercise for the day. I can't slouch anymore.
We as video gamers are like, what is this? How do I stand up? Anyway, we've got lots of games lined up today as the LCS changes to a new format introducing best of 3 matches. So, gentlemen, my question to you is, how do you think this is going to kind of evolve and affect the competitive landscape as we know it?
I think it's only going to be a benefit. I think, one, you get to see coaches be more important because there was no adaptation between games. You just kind of had your pre-planned pick ban phase, and you went out there and you executed it, and that's pretty much all you did. Now you have to react to what the other team did, and it gets rid of a lot of variability where you kind of see, I think, more upsets in a best of 1, which can be interesting, but at the same time, I think it's a little bit more, genuine to who should win.
So the coaches are going to play a role, but Dyrus, talk to me about from the player side of things, how operating under that best of 3 format is going to either improve or help them grow throughout the split.
I really like the best of 3 format because, first of all, you don't go home salty just losing one game. Maybe you got cheesed. Maybe you had stage jitters and you didn't play that well. And then you go at them with the second game and you can prove that, oh, we really aren't this bad. We can show them. On the other side, if you're winning, it's like, oh, we didn't win by pure luck. We actually stomped them, like the 2-0 for TSM till CLG. Or you can have the 2-1 with NV and NRG.
Yeah, any and all results are either a little bit more definitive, just in that it's like, hey, over a 3-game series, you had to win at least 2, so it kind of puts a little bit more of a stamp on the victory and or the defeat that you suffer as one team. Of course, we got our first taste of the format last night in the Battle Theater, where Counterlogic Gaming fell to TSM in a clean sweep after returning from a strong showing at MSI. And last night, Dyrus let the Twitterverse know in no uncertain terms how he felt about that TSM 2-0. Dyrus, on a scale of 1 to smug looks, how would you have rated that game last night?
No comment. I wasn't actually expecting this. Can you do that face
again right now?
I gotta prepare myself.
Okay.
Are you? But yeah, I mean, you look at this back here. We got a whole wall of Dyrus.
I can't focus. Can we put that down?
Oh my gosh.
You're blushing. You're blushing.
Jeez.
No one told me about this.
We got to catch you up. We got to keep you on your toes every once in a while, Dyrus. Well, TSM no doubt looked great last night, but they're not without tough competition in this league. So let's run through some of the teams that might challenge them at the top of the table. And I want to start with Immortals, that team that went 17-1 in Spring Split, had a somewhat disappointing playoff run, only snagging third.
Right. I think the consensus coming in is that that fluke in the playoffs was just that. It was just a fluke. They came in ill-prepared. They weren't, playing the game quite right, if you want to call it that, and they lost as a result. But they showed in that third, fourth place match they're still dominant. And then from what I've heard from the preseason, scrim so far, they're still beasts.
They themselves know the best. I mean, even Pole Belter said they didn't really have a read on the meta with Urgot mid and Lucian top. Very unfortunate, but they're still a really, really strong team, and with their record, they should be strong this split too.
Exactly, and the fact that they haven't made any changes to their roster kind of reinforces the idea that they believe they do have the strongest team. They don't need to make any changes. Moving kind of down the line, let's take a look at Cloud9, a team that did make some changes. They're coming in with a 10-man roster here, the likes of Impact joining the team, Meteos returning to the Rift. What are our thoughts on this squad?
To me, it kind of depends how much they actually use this 10-man roster. Like, I know, Team Liquid, we came in at that point, all like 10-man roster, gung-ho. We made some initial swaps and kind of rode it out the rest of the way. And it's, with the C9 roster, I think it has a lot more room to move people around. And so I'm really looking forward to see if they change anything up.
In my opinion, I think it's just another way of saying if you do bad, we got your replacement right here. So you better try your best. It's going to be a good motivator, in my opinion.
Yeah, gonna light a fire under some asses there, keep people working hard throughout the split. Lastly, though, let's look at Liquid. You mentioned Liquid having come in with that 10-man roster. They kind of, rode it out to the point where they're like, hey, here's the 5 that we want. Dardoch being one of those 5. However, he's going to be out for at least a week or two, given the suspension within the team. Moon in. What's your thoughts on the Liquid situation?
I probably know a little bit more about the situation than I should say, but Moon, from what I've seen in the scrims, I've been watching a decent amount of Team Liquid scrims, both them and TLA, and he is a lot better than he showed with Energy last year. I think there were some, just team synergy issues that he had with that roster, and getting a fresh start in the LCS, I think will do good for him.
All right, well, we'll see how that team develops throughout the day. Last night, we got our first look at Envy in their 3-game battle with Energy, and today we'll see the other 2 freshman LCS teams on stage. So expectations for the likes of Phoenix One and Apex. Apex, a team that has a fair amount of LCS veterans on that roster, so a decent amount of experience coming into week 1.
There are no newcomers to experience in terms of LCS. It's just more about how well they work together against other teams. They weren't really ever bad players. It's just more about synergy, and since they have experience, we'll see how they play in game.
I think for me, the big thing for Phoenix One that I'm happy about is seeing Zig finally in the LCS. Like, this is a dude who probably has paid more dues than like anyone else in NA. Like, he was started way back in Season 2 on, what was it, Monomaniac or something? He's
been around for a while. He's like the old Balls, where Balls was around in Season 1 and 2, but never got really any recognition until C9 took off.
Yeah, except it's Season 6 from basically Season 2.
Yeah.
Right. And we've seen Zig in the collegiate scene as well as in the challenger scene, so he's finally made it here, going to be looking to make his stamp coming out of that top lane. Of course, there's a fair number of solid top laners across the region, so he'll have his work cut out for him. Another factor, though, that will shape the state of the league this summer is that mid-season patch that we saw come in. We've got Dragon and Rift Herald changes. We've also, of course, got the Mage updates. So with all of this in mind, gentlemen, how do we expect to see, for example, these Drakes changing the way that the game is played?
Well, it just means that early and mid game is more prominent, because if you let that go, it's gonna hit you later on, especially with the Elder Drake timesing all of these dragons by 2. One of the dragons that appealed the most to me is usually Infernal Drake or Ocean Drake, because when you siege, you get the regeneration from Ocean, or Fire Drake, you just hit a lot harder. And when team fights get really, really close to that last bit of health, that little bit is what's going to push you over.
Yeah, I think I'm very interested in how it plays out over the course of the season. We've seen like some weird games where you see like 4 Wind Drakes, and like it's just like, do we really want to even move that fast? Like, am I used to running that quickly? So the RNG factor that introduces can be interesting. At the same time, it's a little bit of like, I think Wind Drake needs to get buffed necessarily, so like all of them have an equal impact, but are just different.
Okay, now talk to me about the Rift Herald. I know that general consensus is that most people don't exactly know what to do with it yet, how much value to place on it, where and when to use it, when should we sacrifice maybe picking up a turret in order to pick up the Rift Herald, if ever.
we heard people talking about it a little bit last night, where when people do take it, they tend to win a lot, but it's a bit of a question of the chicken or the egg. Like, are they winning and they just grab it? And I think that's kind of the case. Right now, it doesn't seem, even though it's like very strong, but it's not worth trading the long-term team impact of a Dragon for, because it really only influences that individual person for 20 minutes. So you would argue that the Dragons are probably more impactful, and so that's why you kind of see it getting ignored in a lot of games.
Personally, I think it depends heavily on the champion. Like, if you have a Zed middle, you can even give it to him and he'll split push.
Right.
But one of the champions that stood out to me with Rift Herald that people don't really play is Shen. Because with Shen, usually Vladimir was the counter to Shen. But with Rift Herald, Shen beats Vladimir, which is very, very weird. And it's a 20-minute buff, so it lasts for very, very long. It's very undervalued as a team objective, but more of a split objective where you can get the TP off first for your team. It's just a very, very valuable thing to have if you utilize it.
That's some of the theory crafting that I'm really curious to see teams employ as we become more familiar with the way that this Rift Herald buff works. Can we find the champions that do really benefit from that buff?
Right, you might see it's the kind of thing where you don't even need to change Rift Herald, it's just the top lane meta changes up, and all of a sudden it's Jax, Fiora, Aurelia, and then it's like, okay, this is crazy, we need to get this buff. So.
Right, exactly. Speaking of which, I mean, I know this isn't the top lane, but we had the Mage update come through. So, of course, we're seeing some diversity in the champions being played. Vladimir, as you mentioned, being one of the ones that's played quite a lot recently. Swain, either on the ban table or being played. And, of course, Zyra showing up as well. So, you know, with that Mage update, who are the, you know, big contenders that you see? And then how do you expect these teams to evolve playing around these champions? Because it still seems like there's some uncertainty as to how to deal with the likes of Vladimir and Swain.
Since we don't really see scrims as much, I mean, I don't know if Mark here has, but I haven't. As for champions like Swain, the reason why Swain is so prominent is because he's very good against the current tank meta where it's Echo, Trundle, Maokai. Like, Swain just straight out beats them in lane because of his sustain, and he's just a lot more ridiculous now.
Yeah, just keep going with Swain a little bit. You know, Quas was a huge Swain. He's like probably one of the best Swains in the world, and I watched a lot of his scrims. And before the changes, what he always struggled with was kind of these different team situations where you need more zone control, and now with the Q change, you can throw it into a choke point. People can't walk through it as easily. In a 2v1, you now have a range farming mechanic. You can kind of throw that bird out. And so I think a lot of the changes weren't as much numerical as what he's able to do now with the function changes.
Yeah, banned all 3 games against him yesterday. We'll see if he ever gets the opportunity to spring at that champion. Now, the increase in games also means we'll be implementing a new dual stream format as well, with matches played simultaneously across 2 different channels. You guys at home are welcome to tune into either or both to watch your favorite teams, but be warned, on the Analyst Desk, anything goes. In this zone, spoilers will exist. Watch at your own risk, and if you want to avoid spoilers, be sure to hit that mute button or check back with the stream when we're in game or at the caster desk. This is your last and final warning. When you see Dash, this face here, there are spoilers ahead. You know, like Tyler Durden isn't real, Soylent Green is people, and Bruce Willis, well, he was dead the whole time. Now, just a reminder that we've changed our system for recognizing standout players here at the NA LCS. We're no longer using the OP5 format, and instead, we'll be selecting a player of the game that will weigh into selection of the regular season MVP at the end of the split. We'll tally the players who received honors throughout the weekend and recap the standings at the end of our Sunday broadcast. So we'll get a kind of a macro picture of where all those players are lining up and their impact on the teams. Of course, the standings, though, before we get into the games, we've got to check them out. Pretty much a clean slate for the teams, but following last night's matches, TSM and Envy sit on top of the list. We'll see which teams can join them over the course of this weekend, and that brings us to today's docket. Playing in the Battle Arena on NALCS 1, we have Cloud9 versus Immortals, followed by Team Envy going up against Liquid. And in the Battle Theater, broadcasting on NALCS 2, Echo Fox takes on Phoenix 1 with Apex and Energy facing off right after that. Gentlemen, with these 4 matches in mind, which are the ones we're looking forward to the most? Any key elements within the matchups that we're excited for?
For me, like I kind of already said, I want to see Phoenix 1 play. I'm very excited for Zig. I hope he goes out there and performs. Charlie, the coach, someone else I'm pretty good friends with, so a little bit biased. I like a lot of the people on that team and involved with that org, so I hope they do well.
And for most of us, it'll be our first time seeing those players play, so it's going to be a good litmus test for how they stack up against the rest of the LCS. Dyrus?
I'm very neutral for now. I'd like to see how everyone plays, and my opinion will be formulated as time goes on with the bandwagon.
All right, well, we get to start off with C9 versus Immortals, specifically on that matchup, as we mentioned, because C9 is coming in with this remade roster, whereas Immortals is coming in with that kind of solid 5 that they've had. I mean, I would assume that we expect Cloud9 to be fighting an uphill battle here. How do you think they should be approaching this best-of-3 series against Immortals to give themselves the best shot?
They have to be ready for the Huni reign over Pain train. So, like, it's going to be a very big test, day one, of how Impact and Meteos, what their synergy is like, and making sure that they're communicating when these dives are coming, when they need pressure, and I think that's going to be the key thing to watch.
All right, well, we'll keep our eyes on that as we head out to the games. It's time to hand it over to the casters to get the games underway.